Hey, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Tuesday, September 1st, 2009 meeting of the Glendale Redevelopment Agency. Mr. City Clerk, could you call the roll?
Agency members: Friedman, Najarian,
Here.
Quintero,
Here.
Weaver,
Here.
Chairman Draymond.
Here. And could we hear your report, please?
Agenda for the September 1st, 2009 regular meeting of the Glendale Redevelopment Agency was posted on Thursday, August 27, 2009 on the bulletin board outside City Hall.
Thank you very much. And our next item?
Their motion to approve the minutes.
So moved. Second.
I think we have Mr. Najarian.
Yes, please record an abstention on the minutes of the 25th of August.
5th. Okay. With that abstention, then the minutes will stand approved as submitted or as corrected. Our next item?
Is oral communication. I believe there was one card submitted.
Yes.
Discussion is limited to items not part of this agenda. Each speaker is allowed 5 minutes. Members of the redevelopment agency may question or respond to a speaker, but there will be no debate or decision, and the matter may be referred to staff through the executive director for investigation and report.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kasakian. Herbert Milano is our speaker.
Good afternoon, Agency Chair Draymond, members of the agency and city staff. My name is Herbert Milano. I have been giving a lot of thought to what generally transpired during this session, but more than anything to what I find personally missing from these weekly meetings. And it isn't very frequent that we hear of any status report on the other part, or the other should we say, obligation of the agency, which is the economic development portion of it. So I guess I'm trying to promote the same idea with the quality of life indicators on social issues, to perhaps to have the agency report on a monthly basis on some type of performance measures with regard to how the city is doing with regard to economic development locally. I was reading some statistics with regard to how employment generally is distributed throughout the U.S., and 50% of the employment are with organizations that have 100 or fewer employees. Now, normally when I see the data on some of the economic activity that appears on the CAFR, on the statistical section, it lists the major employers. You know, the City of Glendale being number one, then Unified School District being number two, and then you find a listing of the hospitals, you know, and Nestle as being among the top employers. It's my understanding that Nestle may be leaving soon, and there's going to be a significant lowering of the employment in Glendale due to their leaving, or at least they intended to do this past year, but nonetheless, I think that's the intent. Nonetheless, as I look at where the city's focus is with regard to the smaller employer, how is the city doing vis-a-vis Burbank or Pasadena? You know, as I look at the difficulties that my tenants are having now in sustaining their jobs and their employment, it comes to mind, particularly at this time of the month, when they are either submitting their rent payments or not submitting their rent payments. And I'm thinking, what opportunities is the city affording individuals who are in need of employment, other than what's basically being provided through the job center? I'm thinking, how is the city performing with regard to creating more job opportunities than the surrounding cities? And if that is the role of the redevelopment agency, should we be getting periodic, quarterly, or monthly reports on any initiatives that the city may be taking to improve or attract different types of industry or different types of employers to the city, given the incredibly high vacancy rate that we have with regard to commercial office space? And so, as I'm thinking of these performance indicators with regard to social issues, I thought it would be an interesting thing to try to promote, you know, a quarterly and periodic report on how the city is performing towards achieving, you know, the attraction of additional employers, the additional opportunities that the city is bringing with vis-a-vis the reduction of the unemployment in the city by the attraction of additional jobs and opportunities in industry. I was looking at some of the city statistics with regard to industry, and the thought came to me, I'm planning to open a new business, and I thought, well, what if I were to open it in an industrial part of the city? Would it be easy for me to work with in Glendale? Would I have significant obstacles? What would be the opportunities for me to hire locally, right, and increase the base by opening this new entity that I'm thinking of bringing. And so the thoughts were just there, and it just sort of segues into other things with regard to how is the city promoting, and attracting industry that provides jobs for blue-collar workers? How is it attracting other types of jobs that are not necessarily aimed at the retail end of the business? And I was wondering if perhaps the city should be providing some type of quarterly report to see how it's moving towards achieving certain goals. Thank you very much.
Mr. Milano, before you go away, let me also just ask you, unrelated to that, how are you managing the fire, you and your family?
Well, thank you for asking. I actually had some pictures to tell you. It was pretty scary last night. It was unlike anything I've ever experienced that close to home. And we are next to a hillside, and so, but we're not necessarily that close to where the fire is. But we had the fear that if the embers and the wind were to turn, the hillside next to us would go up in flames pretty fast. So last night around 11 or so, we were packing things up and all the things that are important to us, pictures, the videotapes.
The CAFR, I assume, also. Your copy of the CAFR.
Our dog finally, our old dog finally passed away, but but it is it's a very sobering feeling for those of us, and oftentimes when I think about those things, if I may just add my expressions of concern, I decided to look up the city's the written documents by the fire department, the emergency preparedness, and I'm encouraging you guys to read it because I had all kinds of pertinent questions with regard to that. Even though I'm not, living per se in the city of Glendale, but it was a concern of mine of those individuals who are living so close to the fire, and how how the city is performing with regard to it. And I think it gives a great opportunity to evaluate how the city is performing and what lessons we learned from this experience and what things we could do better in the future. But thank you for asking. It was very disconcerting to find ourselves in a position where we ourselves had to evacuate. The evacuation centers were only about 4 or 5 blocks away from us. Thank you for asking.
Good luck there. Mr. Lansafame, could I turn to you for just a moment and also ask you what is going on with Nestle?
Mr. Chairman, members of the agency, this seems to pop up every few years. The last contact that we had with Nestle was they were not leaving Glendale. Maybe 4 or 5 years ago, they had talked about relocating to the Midwest. They decided against that, and they renewed their lease. I believe their lease is through, I've forgotten, it's another few years where they are. And again, all the contacts that we've had was that they were staying in Glendale. Nestle USA would stay in Glendale.
Right, thank you. Mr. Quintero.
Yeah, let me just add, having worked with Nestle's, having worked with Carnation before Nestle's bought them, it is always the case that the rumor is that they're moving out next year, they're moving here, they're moving there. They have so many brands, they have so many names, so many companies under that umbrella that they're constantly moving one group of employees to another location, bringing a new company in, and so there's no chance that they're going to leave their West Coast headquarters, in my opinion. But sometimes when they make purchases, they may need to move certain personnel to a particular state for a particular purchase that they've made, but they're here to stay as far as I can see. And how long was the lease? Do you have any idea?
I've forgotten. I'd have to go
Long
back.
term, I'm sure.
It is.
Okay. In any case, thanks for the clarification, and the balance of the comments are noted. Our next item, please. Or are there any other, council or staff comments? Okay, Mr. Kasakian.
There's no items for the business agenda, so if there's no additional agency member or staff comments,
Will we adjourn?
Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we're adjourned.
Mr. Kasakian, may we have the roll call for the special meeting?